There is a saying which says a Buddhist should think about death at least once a day. And when we say think about death, it means think about one's own death and not someone else's death. No? So we reflect about one's own death at least once a day. There are many reasons for this. One of them is that we are going to die. When? We simply don't know. Okay. And in order to be able to use our death positively, or at least to be able to direct ourselves positively after death, it's very important for us to train ourselves. So we cannot prepare ourselves for death in the moment that death comes. We need to prepare ourselves since this very right moment, every day in our life. Then slowly we get there. Slowly we are able to prepare ourselves to deal correctly with death. This is one of the reasons why we need to do every day. But the other reason is that it's by familiarization that changes happen. It's by repeating again and again the same thing. Okay? And here comes another point. These days we are also seeing in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara the chapter on concentration. And actually the two things go very much together, because in order for me to be able to use death as the best opportunity for spiritual development that I may have in this lifetime, I must be able to concentrate well during death, and for that I must be able to train myself during sleep, and for that I must be able to train myself during meditation. So, in order for me to sit down and meditate on the process of death, and make the transformation of death into the Dharmakaya, of bardo into the Sambhogakaya, of rebirth into the Nirmanakaya, in meditation, I need to have good concentration. If I'm able to do this well, the three transformations well in meditation, then I can apply the same meditation to my sleep. Then after that, I can apply the same meditation to my actual death. But everything starts at the beginning, which is meditation. If we are not able to meditate correctly, very difficultly, we will be able to familiarize our mind to meditate during our own sleep. If we are not able to have the awareness during our sleep, it will be very difficult to have the awareness during the process of our own death. Okay? We will see this in details later. So, one of the first steps which is necessary for us is to develop good concentration. And to develop good concentration, which is actually the ability of the mind to have control on itself, which means the mind comes and says, "Your mind stays here." Then the mind remains there. That's what we want. We need our mind not to be constantly looking around and thinking and going. We need the mind to be clear and relaxed. The state of concentration is a state of relaxation with clarity. So how to do that? First, we need to eliminate the different objects of distraction. Because the main objects of distractions that we have normally are our objects of attraction and objects of aversion. So our mind is constantly looking for things of aversion and things of attraction. Also, this becomes even stronger in the moment that we are somehow conditioned by external distractions, and there's another word which is like we are constantly in need. We have like a dependence on external stimulus. How do you say in English? Stimuli. Which means we always need something outside. Something that I'm listening, something that I'm looking. It's not enough only to stop and look within ourselves. We have this dependence on external objects. Okay? We can see this by people coming back home and turning on the TV. Okay? And so on. So there is always a need of receiving something from outside. Okay? So we are constantly connected to the outside world. Never able just to be alone by ourselves. So this dependence that we create, it is always being connected to the past and to the future. So very often we re-suffer the past and we pre-suffer the future. We're there, oh, because this happened and that happened, oh, that may happen, that other thing will happen. So instead of just being present at the present moment. So what happens is that we try to meditate, and our mind is filled up with all stupid things, which is mostly attraction and aversion. We get aversion towards something or someone, and this person and this aversion keeps in our mind for days. Takes the whole of the space in our mind. We may try to meditate, it's there. Then we have a strong attraction to something, it's there again, months maybe, in our mind. So the point is that first step for me is like, okay, we have pleasure in something. Okay, when you have that, leave the present moment and enjoy your pleasure. But once it's finished, don't think much about it. Don't let it take so much space within your mind. There is something that you don't like, okay, what to do? In the moment that we are in front of what we don't like, we deal with it in the best way as we can. When it's finished, it's finished. Do not keep it in the mind. Because the point is that these things take so much space for something that actually brings no real result, no real benefit. So, in order for us to develop good concentration, is this state of relaxation in which we should relax from the attachment that we have towards how we think things should be or should have been. Should relax, okay. Humility in front of interdependence. If things are in a way they are, or if they were in a way they were, if they're going to be in the way they're going to be, is because causes and conditions are there for them to be in such way. And who am I to say they should be different? So we need just to relax. And relax and come back to the present moment. And to come back to the present moment, one of the best things that helps us is the body. Try to imagine if we didn't have a body and our mind started thinking about something in the future, how could we come back to the present moment? But how can you think about me talking if you don't have a body to listen? Or an eyesight to see? Okay? You need a subtle, but you need a body to do that also, even if it's a subtle body. The mind only by itself cannot. So if we had only the mind, we have no connection to the present. Okay? So, sorry? No, we always have a body. We have a subtle body. The gross mind and the gross body are always together. The subtle body and the subtle mind are always together. The very subtle body and the very subtle mind are always together. Okay? So, what we do to come back to the present, we concentrate in the body. For example, at this very right moment, if we start feeling our breath, the sound of the air coming in and out, we can feel the weight of our body in the cushion. We can feel the touch of our hands. We can feel the sensation of touch of the clothes in our body. We can feel the air in our skin. We can feel the taste in our mouth. We can feel the inner movements of our body as we breathe and so on. All this brings us to the present moment. Okay? That's why when we start meditation, one of the first steps is basically observe our own breath. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Because if we are not able to free ourselves from all the mental distractions of attraction and aversion, it will be very difficult to do any other form of meditation really well. Which is, okay, we can do, sure, some benefit there, but still, we use only a very small part of our potential because our space is full up with stupid things. So, here comes the importance of concentration, also in relation with the death process. Because once I have a good concentration, and I can meditate well on the death process, and then I can prepare myself well during sleep, and then I can prepare myself well for the actual death, and I can deal with it in the best way. Okay? So what we do in this process, the first step, is I still need to finish to explain the process of rebirth, and then we will go to the process of the 3 transformations. Okay? Yes? No, you do here in bardo. You have in the bardo, you have what you call a subtle body, which is similar to the body of a dream, through which you can hear also. No, actually, the question, if I didn't have a body, is not sustainable because it's not a possibility, basically. No? It's just, I just simply said it before, just for us to understand how the body brings us to the present moment. Okay? So, before we actually start to explain the 3 transformations, we haven't really finished the explanation of the process of bardo and rebirth. So, after clear light, which is the actual moment of death, when the very subtle mind and body get out of this body, we are right away reborn into the state of bardo. Bardo literally means intermediate state. Bardo means between two things. Partuyöba. So the bardo is the intermediate state between one life and the next, between death and rebirth. But within this intermediate state, there is also birth and death, which means we are born in the bardo. Right after clear light, we have another 7 visions which come right away, which is from clear light of death. Right after that, in a very quick way, we have black vision, red vision, white vision, wind, fire, water, earth. And then we wake up somehow, we are reborn in the state of bardo, which is very similar to the state of dreaming. Like when we fall asleep, we have the dissolution of the elements, and then suddenly we wake up in the state of dreaming. No? The dream, it doesn't happen slowly. In one instant, I am there dreaming. So what happens is that we appear in the state of dream very fast, in an instant. So, similar to that, in the bardo, we also appear, similar as in the dream. We have a subtle body through which we can see, we can listen, we can touch, we can smell, we can taste. And in this sense, we have the 5 senses, but they are more subtle. They are not gross. We don't have a physical sense. But still, we can listen and so on and so on. Okay, because we have this subtle body, similar as a dream. The state of the bardo, also the state of the dream, it has 2 aspects which we should take into consideration together. One aspect is that anything that we see and we experience is a result of our own mental state. Okay? So in the bardo, the way how we experience everything, it depends on our own karma, depends on our own mind, and so on. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that there is no reality and that everything is a total illusion. It's not like that. Similar to when we are alive, like right now. Actually, when we are in bardo, we're also alive, but a different type of life. But when we have this body here, everything that we see, it is also a reflection of our mind. But this doesn't mean that everything exists only in our mind. What I want to say is that the way how I see this place and the way how an ant will see this place is totally different. Okay? Because it depends also on my psychophysical state, the way how I experience the world around me. Okay? The same thing happens in the bardo. Prego, Claudio. Sure. It is a karma. In the same way that if in the dream, if we kill someone in a dream, it's an action of mind. Even though it's not an action of body, of killing, it's still an action of mind. So it's not the full karma of killing because you are physically not killing anyone, but still there is karma, there is a mental karma. The same thing happens in the bardo also. Yeah? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Person. No, what happened is that two things. One is that we keep something inside, so we find a way how to manifest this. So it's like a knot that is a blockage that is, how do you say, relieved, which is good. The point is that if we still do it with anger, with aversion, it is still an action of anger and aversion. So in one way, we unblock that, we loosen that blockage which was there, which has a positive result, which becomes a positive condition. But the action itself of anger is not a positive action. Okay? So, just we go back to the process of the bardo. So what happened is that in the bardo, we will have a body that is a subtle body. We have all the five senses. We are born in the bardo from one instant. Okay? And in the bardo, we can have up to 7 lives. Each life of the bardo, it can last until 7 days of our time. Okay? So what happens is like similar that in a night time, we can have more than one dream. But when one dream ends and another dream starts, there is no awareness of the dream before. It's like what we call a small death and a small rebirth. No? So it's like there is a very small death. One bardo ends and the other bardo starts automatically. But also here there is the dissolution of the elements and the dissolution of the visions. So there is, again, earth dissolves into water, water into fire, fire into wind, wind into white vision, red vision, black vision, clear light. From clear light we go back again. Black vision, red vision, white vision, wind, fire, water, earth. Again, this all goes very fast, and it's just like from one state of dreaming to the other state of dreaming, which actually in the bardo is from one state of bardo to the next. So if in the first opportunity we do not get any rebirth, it will mean that we will have the other opportunity. Other aspects of the bardo. In the bardo, there is no distinction between day and night, because it says that we don't have the white and red bodhicitta physically. So for us, it makes no difference between day and night. There is no this awareness. There is no the perception of the difference between day or night. At the same time, the bardowa, which means the being of the bardo, doesn't have any physical obstacles during the life, which means can go through walls and mountains and everywhere. The being of the bardo can at the same time, if we are in the bardo with awareness, which means if we were able to die with awareness and then we enter into the bardo knowing that we are in the bardo, we can have the ability to go anywhere. We can go to the pure land of Tushita to receive teachings from Buddha Maitreya. We can go to any place, because we say that the speed of the bardo is the speed of the mind. So we think in one place and we get there. That's why it's so important during our lifetime to go for pilgrimages. Because when we go to holy places during our lifetime and we create a strong connection to these holy places, in the bardo, if we are able to reconnect our mind with that place, at the very right moment we get there. So if we are in the bardo and we simply remember Borobudur or remember Albagnano, for any reason, just don't need to be a remembrance, oh, that time that I was there. Not like this. Just connect the mind with the place, we are there. And by being there, we receive the blessings and we get our mind directed in a good way. Because what happened is that during the life with a gross body such as now, to make any change, it takes a long time. It's said that our body now here, our life is like if we are a big ship in the ocean. That to turn direction, it takes a lot of effort. In the bardo, we are just like a small canoe. You do one movement, you change direction, which is wonderful in one way and danger in another. Okay? So, otherwise someone may think, oh, better I die so I can change myself easier. It doesn't work like that. Okay? So the point is that we need to familiarize ourselves very well with virtues from this moment so that whenever comes the moment, we are ready to do it well. So, that's why in the bardo, during our lifetime, if we do pilgrimage, if we connect our mind with the Guru, if we do all of this very well, if we remember that in the bardo for one instant, which is just connect our mind with the Guru, with Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, with compassion, with wisdom, with the holy places, this will automatically change our direction. If we were to be reborn in a negative state, in a lower realm, this will automatically change our life to be reborn in a better state. Okay? So, what happens is that also the bardo, the being of the bardo also is clairvoyant, which means is able to see and to listen to the mind of others. So the way of connection is through the mind. He said that all forms of life that don't have a gross body connect through the mind. You know? That's why there is all these stories of spirits and so on that they talk through the mind. No? There is one well-known story, I just remember now, of one Lama with his disciple, and they were doing a puja for one local deity. No? And then what happened is that they need to make an offering for him, and he made of tsampa, like this little puppet, and he had a horse. So the disciple was there, and he made the horse very carefully, and he thought, oh, what a beautiful horse that I have made, to offer. And but what happened is that the master, when he saw the horse that his disciple made out of this barley thing, he looked at it and he said, oh, this looks like a small stupid donkey. It doesn't look at all like a horse. And okay, they did the ceremony, okay. After that came the oracle with the spirit. And he went to the disciple and said, thank you, you offered me a very good horse. Went to the Lama and said, you just offered me a stupid donkey, So, it depends on the intention that we put. That's why it says also that any form of life that doesn't have a physical gross body, the main form of communication is through the mind. Actually, we also communicate through the mind. But very often we are not aware of it, even though we do. It's something actually somehow quite normal. It's not something special and different. We all communicate through the mind also. But what happens is that when we don't have anymore a gross body, this becomes very, very, very clear. There is no other form of communication than directly through the mind. That's why we say also to pray for those that have died. Because to pray means to generate a positive intention and positive thoughts towards the person that have died. So this person can feel it, can connect it, because the person is actually listening to our thoughts, not to the words we say. Okay? So, this is also another aspect of the being of the bardo. So the being of the bardo, there is also the colors of the body. It's said that if we are to be reborn as a human being, we will have a white body. The color of our body shall be white. If we are to be reborn as an animal, our body should be gray. If we are to be reborn as a semi-god or a god, our body should be yellow. If we are to be reborn as a hungry ghost, our body should be transparent as water, looking like water. If we are to be reborn in the hell realm, our body is like black, like burned wood black. Okay? So this is just the different colors of the body. The reason for that is that if we are in the bardo and we look and we see that our body is gray or is black, okay, we say, okay, no, maybe take refuge, okay, do something. This is not the right way, okay? So, but the main thing is that if we get familiarized well during our lifetime with virtue, this will help us to direct our mind positively during the bardo, and by that to assure us of having a good rebirth. So, after that, what happens is that we are in the bardo, going around freely. No? At a certain point, we see our father and mother of the next life. Actually, there are 4 possibilities of rebirth. There is the rebirth of a miraculous way. The rebirth of a miraculous way is basically the rebirth of a bardo is a rebirth of miraculous way, which is spontaneous. The rebirth in the hell realm is a miraculous rebirth. The rebirth in the God realm is also a miraculous rebirth. It's an instant rebirth. Okay. Then there is the rebirth on egg. And then there is a rebirth by heat, like small insects and bacteria, and there are different forms of life that are reborn, which we call by heat. And then there is the rebirth in the mother's womb. Okay? So the rebirth in the mother's womb by the union of the sperm and the ovum. Okay? So, taking this as our reference, what happens is that we are in the bardo, going around, and then suddenly we see the union of our father and mother, future father and mother. This is not that we see the physical aspect necessarily. Okay? What is mainly is that we see the 2 energies of the father and the mother. Energy, which is basically white and red bodhicitta, and we get attracted to it, you know. Because one of the problems, that are some texts describe that we see the father and we get attracted to the father or to the mother. Some other texts, which is the ones I make reference to, they talk that we get attracted not to the actual father and mother body, but to the white and red bodhicitta and its energy. Okay? This is also, it explains why it's possible also to make, how does it call in English? In vitro fertilization. That's why it's possible to do in that way also, because the attraction is not to the father or to the mother, but to the energy of the sperm and the ovum when they are in union. Okay? Yeah. The moment, this happens in the moment of conception itself. That, yeah. Yes, you have to do a physical union, sure. But because of your ignorance and karmic connection, basically. If we are aware, if we are in the bardo with awareness, we can choose with clarity where we want to be reborn. We can choose which is the good family for us to be our parents. Where do I want to be reborn? Where are the good conditions for us? This is called a tulku, which means the one that has awareness during the bardo and can choose where and how to be reborn. So it's choosing which is the best way and how to be reborn. Otherwise, we simply choose out of our attraction and aversion and ignorance. Please. Okay, that's very sure. But the point is that also the Lama Ganchen once told that the conditions for those that are reborn with, how do you say in English, in the test tube, is someone that doesn't have the wish to have parents, someone that have this, how do you say, conditioned in the mind of somehow aversion to parents, somehow. But the main point here is that in the bardo, we generate attraction to the 2 energies. Okay, it doesn't matter how it happens. Okay, the point is that the attraction that we generate is based on our own state of mind and our own ignorance. It's like, how many times during our lifetime we make wrong choices? Not all the time. Luckily, we are here. This means we didn't make only wrong choices. But also, we do make wrong choices in life, no? Why do we make these wrong choices? Out of ignorance, out of attraction, out of aversion. And whenever we did a wrong choice, we thought was the best. So the same thing happens in the bardo. We are there around. Then at a certain point, we see something and we have such an attraction to it, which is we can see the father and the mother energy, And what happens is that whenever we see it, we simply dive into it. And it's said that we have attraction towards one energy and aversion towards the other. So what happens is that we have attraction towards the male energy, we are reborn as a woman. If we have attraction towards the female energy, we are reborn as a man. If we have the same level of attraction towards both energies, we are reborn as an hermaphrodite. Okay? So, what happens is that, this also once Lama Ganchen was explaining, I remember one of his disciples was complaining to him, like not really complaining, but somehow, yes, saying, I want so much to have a son, but I only get daughters, you know. And then Rinpoche was explaining the main reason for that was the fact that in the moment of union, who has the more attachment? If it's the man that has more sexual attachment energy, it will be a girl, the daughter. If it's the woman that has more sexual energy of attachment at that moment, then it will be a boy. This is also the explanation that Rinpoche was giving at that time. I don't think it needs necessarily always to have this condition, but it makes a lot of influence also. Okay? So, anyhow, the point is that we are in the bardo, going around, we see these two energies, we get attraction to one and aversion to the other. It's somehow, we could say, similar to some type of jealousy. And we simply dive into it to get it. We dive with all our power and energy, we go to it. But in the bardo, we are used to run through everything. But when we get in contact with it, accident. We get trapped, we die, basically. Okay? That's why there are many practices like in Guhya Samaja, Vajrayogini, that when we do the meditation on the process of rebirth, we visualize the lotus flower with the sun and the moon cushion below. And then we dive into it, and from it we are reborn as Vajrayogini or Guhya Samaja and so on. Because it symbolizes from the bardo seeing the union of the male and female energy, of white and red bodhicitta. Okay? But the point is that we go into it, in the moment that we enter into the union of sperm and ovum, we get totally trapped into that. And it's like that's the moment that the indestructible drop is created. And at that moment, our very subtle body and mind gets trapped into it. We go through the process of death. Earth dissolves into water, water into fire, fire into wind, wind into white vision, red vision, black vision, clear light. Very fast. And then from clear light, once again, we go through black vision. Then it's very slowly. Red vision, white vision, wind, fire, water, and earth. This process will take all the 9 months. Now I don't remember exactly the distinction between the months. Maybe it's a little bit before or later. Now, sincerely, I don't remember that. There is the whole description during the whole 9 months after conception of the process of where each month, how is which element is developing and so on. The process of the elements is exactly the one I have just said. The timing exactly now I don't remember. But also the 5 senses. First we develop the sense of touch and taste, then smell, then hearing, and last vision. Okay? So the process of birth we go in the other way. The first part that develops, everything starts from the indestructible drop. So from there we develop the central channel. From the central channel starts to develop the 4 channels of the heart, then the other 4 channels of the heart, which these 8 channels develop into another 24, the 24 develop into 72, the 72 develop into 72,000, and like this we have all the different subtle channels of energy in our body, and together with that, this process, we also develop our 5 senses, and also the gross mind. At the process of birth, the gross mind is not that in the moment of conception, who is born is not me. My very subtle mind. So this gross mind that I have here, it's something of this life. No? This is why also some people ask, why we don't remember clearly our previous lives. Okay, first of all, if we cannot even remember clearly what we had yesterday for breakfast, How can we wonder to remember everything of our previous lives? But anyhow, the point is that two reasons. One reason is that death, bardo, and rebirth are very strong traumas if we do not do it with awareness. Okay? So based on that, it's like this makes also us to forget what have happened based on these strong traumas that we have. The other reason is that, which for me is maybe one of the main reasons, is that during our life, we mostly are connected with our gross mind. And the gross mind says goodbye to us in the moment of death. It goes away. So the gross mind of this life is not the same gross mind of the previous life. It's totally different. It is what is the same is the very subtle mind, which makes a bridge from life to life. That is still here and was here also in my previous life. But the subtle, in the process of rebirth, the subtle mind manifests into, the very subtle mind manifests into a subtle mind, which manifests into a gross mind. But at the moment of death, that gross mind loses power, then the subtle mind loses power, and only the very subtle mind, which has all the imprints of the gross and subtle minds, continues. And then remanifests again. So sure, today we still have many things in our mind that were imprints created by our gross mind of the previous lives. But the actual gross mind of the previous life is not here anymore. So if we have mainly contact with our and awareness of our gross mind, how can we remember things if we only have awareness of our gross mind? That's why it's said that once we are able to eliminate completely ignorance and get out of the cycle of samsara, we also access at that point all the memories from all our lives. Because we are able to have total awareness of our very subtle mind and all the imprints that are there. So it's like if we open our memory for everything we have seen, everything we have listened in all our lives. Okay? That's why when Buddha passed away, and they started to write the texts of the sutras, the only ones that were allowed to write the sutras, to transcribe, were the ones that had this realization, so they could remember precisely everything that they had listened. Okay? So even the last one, which was Ananda, and he didn't get the realization, so all the other 499 arhats, they were there pushing him, come on, Ananda, you were the one that was always together with Buddha. If you don't get the realization, how can we write everything down, you know? Because there were many teachings that only Ananda was present, and he didn't get the realizations yet. So they were pushing him to get the realization. Finally, they managed. And then they could complete all the transcriptions of Buddha's teachings. But they were based on this type of realization. That's why we say that the sutras are 100% reliable. Okay? But the point here is that if we do not develop awareness of our more subtle mind, we will never be able to remember what happened really clearly in the past. Okay? So we have here the process of death, bardo, and the process of rebirth. Okay? Now, it means that the dissolution of the elements in bardo, it means that we have a gross, subtle body. It is a gross body, but in a subtle way. Okay? It is part of a gross body, but still in a subtle way. It's not like our physical body. And this body only starts losing power. So what happens is that the dissolution of the elements basically mean the more gross aspect of ourself starts to lose strength, and only the very subtle aspect of the body and the mind remains. Then from that again, another gross aspect starts to develop. That's the process of rebirth. The more gross is our body, the stronger this process will be. That's why it is said also that, for example, in animals or our life, the bigger the body, the stronger the process of death. The smaller the body, the more fast and light is the process of death. That's why it's said that in the process of death of an elephant, or a cow. It's much more strong and more painful somehow than the process of death of an insect. Okay? This doesn't mean that there is no negative karma in killing an insect, okay? But still, the point is that there is this difference also. So the process of death is nothing more than the gross aspects losing power and only remaining the very subtle aspect of body and mind. So in the moment of bardo, we also have it's not only the very subtle mind, there is also a subtle and a more gross mind also. So this loses power, and that's actually this process of dissolution. Okay? Yeah. No, the same thing is like, there is a subtle body, there is a body which we could call a gross body, which is not made of physical aspects, which is made basically we could call of energy. Okay? And it's there, it's just like spirits and so on. Okay? So basically what happens is that once we understand and we see the process of death, bardo, and rebirth, we need to use them in the right way. We need to use them in our favor. One very important thing to understand is that in all Buddha's teachings, there is not one aspect of Buddha's teachings that is not directly connected to the conditions that we have right now. No? Is that why in the beginning of these teachings I was explaining we have in the death, we have the basis of the death, the path, and the result. We have just explained the basis. Now we need to talk about the path so that we can get the result. So, the point is that death is something that we are going to get. We are going to experience. Bardo also, rebirth also. So Buddha has been teaching us how can we use these processes in our favor. How can we use these processes actually to benefit ourselves, to use it as the best opportunity for our development. Okay? So this transformation is called transforming the death into the Dharmakaya, which is the pure subtle body, very, very subtle mind, sorry. So transforming the death into the Dharmakaya, which would be the very subtle body and mind of a Buddha. Transforming the bardo into the Sambhogakaya, which is the subtle body and mind of a Buddha. Transforming the rebirth into the Nirmanakaya, which is the gross body and mind of a Buddha. Okay? So how can we do that and why we will do that? First we do in meditation, so that after we can do it in reality. Okay? So what happens is that the first transformation is called transforming death into the Dharmakaya. And I would like just today to explain to you a little bit of why and technically somehow why and how it works. Okay? So it's the following. Our suffering is generated, originally the root of all our suffering is our ignorance. The ignorance of not knowing that all phenomena are interdependent. The ignorance of grasping at inherent existence. So, because of this form of ignorance, we generate selfishness, which is the obsession with self-gratification. We generate selfishness. From selfishness, we generate a mind of attraction and aversion. From the mind of attraction and aversion, we generate anger, hatred, fear, attachment, desire, miserliness, anxiety, and so on. And from this, we suffer, basically. Because we act, and then we have the results of our actions, and all of this, and we come out suffering. So the root of all our suffering is our own ignorance that grasps at inherent existence. Okay? We will see better what this means in the next days, but this grasping at inherent existence, that's the main cause of, that's actually the root of all our suffering. So what happens is that our mind has a very special quality, which is we are not able to think about two directly opposite objects at the same time. Which means we are not able to think at the same time, I like water and I don't like water. We can think one just after the other. I like water, no, I don't like water. No, I like water. We can change our mind very fast. But we are unable to think exactly at the same time, I like water and I don't like water. I can say I like the taste of water, but I don't like the temperature of the water. But I'm not able to think at the same time, I like water and I don't like water. Okay? So in order for me to eliminate the mind, I like water, what mind do I need to generate? I don't like water. Okay? Similar to that, in order for me to eliminate the mind that grasps at inherent existence, what do I need to generate? The mind that understands that inherent existence does not exist. The lack of inherent existence, emptiness. But the problem for us is that our ignorance exists not only in a gross level, but also in a subtle and in a very subtle level also. Okay? Normally in the sutra is called kundak and lenkye, which is the conceptual and spontaneous grasping at inherent existence. In Tantra, it's called gross, subtle, and very subtle. So what happens is that at this process, through meditation, when we generate the mind that realizes the lack of inherent existence in a gross level, at that moment we are blocking our ignorance in a gross level. And that's already a very good realization. But the problem is that we still have that ignorance in a subtle level and in a very subtle level. So what do we need to do, basically? We need to do two things together. We need to put two things together, which is, first, we need to generate a subtle level of consciousness. And then within the subtle level of consciousness, we must develop wisdom. In that way, we cut ignorance from a subtle level of consciousness. Then what we do, we develop a very subtle level of consciousness, and within that very subtle level of consciousness, we realize emptiness, we realize wisdom. And by that way, we cut ignorance from a very subtle level of consciousness. Just taking our mind to a subtle and a very subtle level of consciousness, there is nothing special in that. Okay? Just experiencing a subtle level of consciousness, there is nothing special. We experience more subtle level of consciousness whenever we go to sleep, whenever there is an orgasm, whenever we die, we experience a very subtle level of consciousness. As Panchen Losang Chögyam Gyaltsen said, from the 10th ground bodhisattva to an ant, at the moment of death, there is clear light. And that's the Mahamudra of the basis, which means everyone experiences a very subtle level of consciousness when die, even the little ant. So there is nothing so special on experiencing a very subtle level of consciousness by itself. What is very special is to experience a very subtle level of consciousness with the awareness of emptiness. Okay? So we need to unite these two things. Okay? So how do we do that technically? Now very shortly, okay, but how we do that? First, we generate the mind that realizes emptiness. Okay? So we have an object of emptiness, which can be the mind itself, it can be a glass, it can be anything, okay, basically. And we unite that with the state of great bliss. And then, with the union of great bliss and emptiness, basically, we're going to explain this in more details this next days, but just to make it short. With the state of realizing emptiness, I start to go through the process of death. Earth dissolves into water, water into fire, fire into wind, wind into the space of consciousness, white vision, red vision, black vision, clear light. And what I do through this process is that, for example, if I am meditating on the glass, okay, it appears as a glass, but its nature is that it's empty of inherent existence. Okay? It doesn't exist by its own self. It doesn't exist by its own nature. Then what happens is that the same thing, I take the same experience to my meditation. So first I have the mirage-like vision. And it appears to me as a mirage-like vision, but I know that this is the dissolution of earth, and it appears as a mirage-like vision, but in reality it is empty of inherent existence. Then I have the smoke-like vision, then the fireflies-like vision, then the flame-like vision, then the white vision, red vision, and later the black vision. But until the red vision, It appears as such, but I know that I experience it as being empty of inherent existence. So I take this experience of the lack of inherent existence, of emptiness, and I take it through the whole process of death. And gradually I take this experience from a gross to a subtle and to a very subtle level of consciousness. Until I reach the moment of black vision, it's important to know that during this whole process it's not intellectual. It's not reflecting about emptiness. It's basically, I got to the conclusion, I feel that it's empty of inherent existence, and I keep that perception to the whole process. And then when I get to black vision, there is even no perception of emptiness, there is no consciousness whatsoever. And then from that, when clear light appears, it will appear as clear light, but as being perceived as being empty of inherent existence. That same consciousness will continue. Why? Because in the process of death, as we have said yesterday, before yesterday, when the gross mind dissolves into the subtle mind and so on, the subtle mind takes the direction of the gross mind, and the very subtle mind takes the direction of the subtle mind. So if I do this process through the experience of emptiness, that's what I will experience with the very subtle mind. And that's transforming death into the Dharmakaya, and cutting the roots of ignorance from a gross, subtle, and very subtle level. Okay? So this is just technically why it works, basically. Okay? And this is technically why death is the best opportunity that we have in the whole lifetime. Like, whenever I think about death, to my mind comes the image of clear light. No? I think we should put in internet some images named death with beautiful clear light. Because whenever I made a research in internet, death by image, it only comes very terrible images. No? But for me, death reminds me of clear light. And it's the best opportunity. Why? Because if we familiarize our mind with emptiness during our life and we're able to take it on at that point, then this will help us to realize emptiness with a very subtle consciousness. And we will cut our ignorance from a very subtle level. And from that, it will be easy for us to transform the bardo with awareness and to transform the rebirth with awareness too. Okay? We will go in more details on this the next days. So the main point through this course, what we are going to see is that once we learn how to do that in meditation, we'll transform the death, we'll simulate the death in meditation. And when we realize this aspect of meditation, we should be able even to let our winds absorb into the central channel and really experience the dissolution in meditation. Okay? Once we do that, we meditate well on the dissolution and the transformation of death, bardo, and rebirth in meditation. Then we should apply this in our sleep. And then we can apply this without so much difficulty at our death. Okay? So, for me, the 9 mixings or the 9 unions, which we're going to be seeing these days, is basically the proof why it's possible to reach enlightenment in one lifetime. It's really very clear why it's possible. Okay? It all depends on doing it every day or not. Because when we take something, for example, I don't know, we read a book, we do anything during the day, and we do a lot of that action. Do we remember it during our dream? Like, as I said the other day, when I was making the work of the paintings here, I would dream with the Photoshop tools. And I would dream in pixels. Why? Because of repeating it so many times. If we repeat every day, 1, 2, 3 times a day even, meditation on the transformation of death into the Dharmakaya, bardo into the Samogakaya, rebirth into the Nirmanakaya, we do it every day. Well, it will come at our dream. It will come at the process of sleep, at the process of rebirth, and then it will come at the process of death. And then we will use this life to cut the root of our ignorance. That's the best gift we can give to ourselves. Okay? Jetsun lame kutse rapten chin namkar tinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasomgi Drowe munse tato ne gyurchi. Nimo dele tsendele, nime kuyan delekshi. Ninsen takto delek pe, koncho sumki jingi lo. Koncho sumgi ngodrup tsol, koncho sumgi trashishom. Oma hun temba lame sangye rinpoche, kyoba lame tamcho rinpoche, rinpa lame gendu rinpoche, kyamne kuncho sumla chopa. Locho sambo pa gyu trashi pa, tuche tembe tinle yarngot, pe gedrolo zambe zebra che, pande lame shela chopa. Oma hung, oma hung.